Guess who's back? State
Hey,
Representative Tacky Chan. Hey, Tacky.
hey, Joe. Good to see you. A bit of a hiatus. Hopefully, you had a good time off this August.
Thank you. I did get down to the Cape for a little bit of sun and fun and relaxation, and I know you did too.
Well, you had a perfect time to be there, where it's hot as sin to be on a beach. I was out in San Diego on a business meeting with the Labor's International Union, as well as meeting some APP. Oh God, I can't pronounce anything. Asian American Pacific Islander folks regarding politics and civic engagement.
The West Coast is a whole different animal than us here in New England, isn't it?
It is San Diego. I've never visited before. It is a military-based city, and it's 1.5 million people. It's a very large city, but it is very pleasant. The weather doesn't change much. The people are nice, but everybody seems to have a tan and incredible physical condition. It makes me a little bit feel insecure as I'm walking around. I'm clearly not the local.
I'm curious, what's the kind of the economy slash job market like out there as compared to here?
Very much a tourism industry.
Yeah.
Obviously, military base, is a big part of your economy. They have Petco Park, actually, which isn't far from where I was staying on the waterfront. And they have a thing called the Gas Lamp District, which is a big tourist attraction, as well as for locals as well. But it's largely a residential service, tourism-based city. And again, it's built around the military base, and of course, people know about Sea World, and the San Diego Zoo and other local attractions. So, it's also a retirement community. Not big surprise because the weather doesn't change, and the weather doesn't change.
That's right. It's definitely dependable for sure, unlike around here.
No, definitely not like here. So it's generally temperate all year round.
Yeah. I'm curious about cost of living there compared to here.
Well, I was in the more expensive area because I'm in the convention area. So when you're in the convention area, they jack up all the prices, obviously. But it is pricier than here. I mean, obviously they have county taxes. We don't have county taxes on top of the state taxes. So it's a lot more add-ons. But also, again, I was also stuck in the downtown area. I was about 2 miles to everywhere I was trying to get to, whether it be a grocery store, a pharmacy, or a restaurant. And it is, it's more expensive than Quincy, but I mean, it's probably more like in Boston prices in the evening.
Okay, yeah. Which, not to say the same thing doesn't happen in the greater Boston area too, where the prices are higher than, say, Quincy.
Yeah. And again, when you're near the convention center, no surprise. I mean, they always jack up the prices there.
Has it kind of bounced back from the pandemic, would you say? Are they back to pre-pandemic levels there?
They're starting to. The hotel folks, I was talking to some tourism folks and hotel folks and the Uber driver and so forth. They're getting some life back this summer, finally. The COVID impact has been, pretty severe for another tourist location. More people have been coming in for the weekend. The convention, they've had a very good convention year this year, which is a huge part of their economy. So they're getting some, economic development again. Again, largely, they depend on outside money to push their service economy forward.
Yeah, curious about the traveling too, Tack. We've heard so many horror stories about air travel. How did you find it?
It wasn't too awful. I mean, I wore my mask in the airport. I wore my mask on the plane. But it was, it packed like sardines. There was no empty spaces. But it was slow. I mean, not to cry Logan Airport as much as other people like to cry Logan Airport, but I mean, my luggage was at the wrong carousel.
Ah, okay.
At 5:30 in the morning, and now it's, go to a different carousel. And the workforce shortage is also very apparent out there, where I took JetBlue and I got there a little too early because of the nature of how things worked out. I was there about 2.5 hours early, but the JetBlue people had no counter. Counter was empty. So the workforce shortage is visible when you walk through the airport because, even though it was a Friday departure, Saturday morning arrival, in the afternoon. Friday is a travel day. People travel for business and pleasure on Fridays. And even though I was there about 5 o'clock, the terminal was in. There's nobody at the terminal working because there's frankly a shortage of people working.
Yeah, it's so interesting. What do you attribute that to? There, I mean, there's so many job openings. There's low unemployment. What are people doing?
Well, I still think it's a combination of factors. I still believe, the mass retirement's real. I think the
Mm.
strong 2021 market, I mean, stock market was insane in 2021. Your private, investments have done extremely well, and people to reach that age to get out. Obviously, people know property is high in Boston, not as high in other parts of the country. But you're property rich and the property values are high. It's a good time also to get out. And there's also the fact that 1.1 million people in the United States are passed on through COVID beyond just normal death rates, and about 2/3 of that are senior citizens. Some are working seniors, but you also got 1/3 of the population who are working age folks or younger, or perhaps some children, but mostly working age folks that also pass on. So you actually have a legit human shortage, and we don't have much immigration the last 2 years because of COVID restrictions, plus the federal government's, quite frankly, asinine policy on immigration and its inability to address the workforce issue needs. And you saw this in the Cape last year, especially because they couldn't get work visas for temporary workers for the summer. And that is still being very challenged today to do so, to get temporary workers from overseas. The price of travel is very high to get anywhere because of the price of fuel. And obviously the cost of housing is very high too. So it's a myriad of factors. I think people oversimplify this as people that don't want to go to work. Unemployment benefits extensions have ended. All the bonus money people are getting from the feds is over. And you got to get a job to make things meet now. And the fact that the unemployment rate is still very low is an indication of all those things I just talked about. And again, people go back to immigration again. I mean, the Fed's inability to figure this out is going to cost us in long term regarding workforce, but also continued birth rate stagnation in this country.
Yeah, it's so interesting you bring that up because speaking to the mayor just earlier this morning about that very subject, and he also attributed some of it to the immigration policies, and particularly along the southern border.
Yeah, I mean, people want to come to get a better life, and getting a better life involves getting a job. I mean, it ain't complicated. People want to be able to have a better life with their children. Many of them are families. And those of you know, including my parents, will sacrifice a lot to give the kids a better life and education and opportunity. So to do whatever it takes. But this country's, and we're not the only country, but we have this inability to reconcile, immigration laws to meet the society we live in today. And historically speaking, throughout U.S. history, you look at the census patterns, immigration waves, the economy, and everything else around you. No big surprise. Wave of immigrants have kept this country afloat through low birth rates and economic decline and workforce shortages. Not new.
No, right. I mean, just here in Quincy, of course, immigrants built the granite industry, the shipbuilding industry, maybe now the financial services, the healthcare industry. So yeah, absolutely.
And also the fact that people under some misnomer that everybody that got here in the last 80 years were legal immigrants that worked here. That's people here that came sneaking over the border is not a new thing in the United States, and you've been living with this for a while because you're not exactly sitting around asking the person next to you at the restaurant, "Can I see your papers?" I mean, I don't think anybody does that. But also, they've been part of that workforce, and people don't really appreciate people in our workforce. As I say again, it's always good to thank the person serving you at the grocery store. Always thank the server at the restaurant. Always thank the person, the cashier and seating you, because, if nothing else, COVID has shown us how many people make our lives so much easier on a day-to-day basis. And, you think I'm sitting around asking about your immigration status? No.
Yeah, I know there is, seeing as we're on the topic, looks like a successful effort to get a ballot question this year on the new driver's license law.
Yeah, I'll be curious how this one goes. This is the second attempt by the Republican Party to try to take away someone's right that has been given to by the legislature. The last time they did this was regarding the transgender civil rights vote, which the state overwhelmingly rejected, taking away their civil rights. So it's curious, right? I mean, we saw the issue regarding Roe versus Wade issue in D.C. and the Supreme Court. Regardless of your position on abortion, that isn't the key issue about that case. The key issue of the case is that the court took away someone's rights. Forget all the other philosophical issues. If that's important to you, so be it. But my important issue in that case is taking away someone's rights. And the court has taken rights away, but that was granted by the executive branch or the legislative branch. The ones that strike me the most obvious is taking away citizenship rights from the Asian Americans, which has been done. The only case of a U.S. citizen granted citizenship was an Indian person who got it, lost it, got it, lost it, in a Supreme Court that took his rights away for no other fact that they determined that he's ineligible because of race. So very rarely you see the court take away a right that the court creates. It does. I'm not saying it's impossible. It's very rare. So what does this mean? It means that any other court created rights, whether it be the right to privacy in your home, the right to love who you want to love, the right to decide. What else is there? Oh, voting rights, right? There's also, try to mandate how voting rights work, as well as gerrymandering issues, right? I mean, there's a whole lot of grandparent rights. A lot of grandparent rights actually, as Supreme Court decided, they don't touch it often, but the few times they have, create a lot of grandparental rights regarding situations where the children are able to become parents. There's a lot of issues that the court has created as rights that's well beyond Roe v. Wade. And, the concern here is that, again, for better, for worse, for whatever reason, it tends to be a Republican group that's looking to take away somebody's rights that the legislature and executive branch creates.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that pans out. You're right, for sure. Can we talk a little bit about the Inflation Reduction Act that was passed at the national level and how it might impact us here on the local level?
Well, it's amazing how something gets done when it tries to get done, right? So how does it affect us on the local level? We won't really know for some time. I mean, like the COVID monies that we've gotten over the last 3 years, you really feel the impact until programs walk out, because it takes time for things to walk and move and, to happen, right? The big one everyone talks about locally is really about the electric car rebate program. We included in the our own wind and climate change bill at the state level rebate for electric cars, but it has to be a certain minimum value. Feds do that too, but it requires the batteries to be predominantly made in the United States and or products and substances not used by a country that we consider hostile. We'll be very simplified on that because we know international stuff is much more nuanced. But that's the one that's catching a lot of people's attention as we move towards electrification of our vehicles to try to be more palatable and capable for people to afford them despite rising prices. But that's an interesting thing, made in America, so to speak, or made of now hostile nations, and how does that really affect us on being afforded to what we want to buy? So, that's a big one. I mean, obviously the healthcare issue, Medicare drug prescription bulk purchasing should have happened a long time ago. One of the biggest base of consumers is the senior population needing the medications. And the fact that feds took so long to take advantage of this large group of consumers to bargain the best price for consumer for drugs, for that demographic it should have happened a long time ago. I mean, this is like common sense economics, right? So someone like my mother, for example, who's living on a fixed income, would be beneficiary regarding her drug purchases down the road.
Yeah, and I think it caps the cost of insulin as well, which obviously millions and millions of people use every day.
Well, we saw the incident regarding the venture capitalists who bought the insulin company and jacked the price like 2,000% or some insane number. I mean, it is amazing how some folks just want to take advantage of folks of something that's a necessity while still able to make money at a very, at a modest price, as opposed to making test money by gouging people, by putting their lives at risk.
Like you say, it's going to take a while, but the impact on energy prices, I think, is going to be interesting to watch as well.
Well, it does its best to expand clean energy, but not actually devastate the coal industry. As we heard from Senator Manchin, he's a coal state from West Virginia. He's trying to preserve his jobs that he can. But there's also the economic reality. Coal's in decline, will continue to be in decline, and it's going to be in decline in the United States for many years to come, even the current energy crunch. That leaves you exporting coal to other places that want coal, but I mean, the place that really wants coal is China. And even then, I mean, you may not have seen on the news that the hydro dams have dried up.
Yep.
And they can't generate hydropower, and they don't have increased capacity, meaning you don't have peak power capacity like we do in the U.S. So even though they're burning the fossil fuels, there's no more fossil fuels to burn because there are no more plants to burn fossil fuels to generate more power. Right. So as much as people take a lot of criticism in the U.S. about energy policy, it's very unlikely that many states, I'm not saying it won't happen in certain regions, but most of us should have sufficient energy despite the pricing structure and climate change issues. So, we'll see how that rolls out as we continue our investment, in renewable energy through the inflation combat bill. Very strange title. On top of the investments, we've been making the last decade.
Yep. And another major topic since we last talked, Tacky, is the student loan forgiveness effort that was approved. How do you feel about that?
I don't even know how it works yet, to be honest with you. I mean,
a lot of people are confused about it. Yeah.
It doesn't affect everybody. I mean, obviously, like in the past, if you got privately bank-owned loans that you got on your own, well, you're stuck. You can't do anything about that. If you got federal loans, well, it depends which one you have. For example, there's been other programs granting loan forgiveness for public servants, other types of loan deductions that I personally have never qualified for because my loans are too old, or they're the wrong type of loan because those loans don't exist anymore because I got the loans initially more than 20 years ago. So it's extremely confusing who actually gets this benefit right off the bat, folks. Okay, so those of you on student loans, don't get too excited. The details are what matters. Take it from a guy who's twice been like, what moments who did not qualify for anything. That being said, I mean, I'm down to my last decade in loans from law school, which I merged in my undergrad loan. So I've been in the student loan payment period for a very long time in my life at this stage. And, I do have mixed reaction about it. Part of it is that people who took student loans made a conscious decision to do it. I mean, no one held a gun to your head unless your parents were really mean or something. You have to go to college. You should have been thinking about this as you kind of went in, how you're going to deal with it. And I certainly was thinking about it. I went to Brandeis, the second most expensive school in the country, and at the time, and was very aware of the size of my debt load, and very aware of the size of the tuition, and very thankful for grant programs at the school level to try to keep me in. Same thing at BC High. I mean, those of you aware, my father passed away when I was 15. We had financial problems at BC High, worked with the family, working with us, trying to figure out how I could finish my education there. Very thankful for their efforts. So it isn't like schools won't try to help you out. I mean, they'll do the best they can. But at the same time, you have to make a conscious decision. And one of the other funny statistics about student loans is that how many people actually finish school? There's some people should look at. I'm trying to remember where I got this data set. I got to find this thing again, but there are some interesting data sets about people who are defaulted on student loans who never finished school. So I don't know if this applies to people who did finish school or not finish school.
Yeah, good question. Yeah.
I don't know the answer to that either. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts here. I think people under the false pretense that everybody in student loan debt actually got a 4-year degree.
Right. Yeah. A lot of people start school without knowing where they're going. They just follow that path just because.
Agreed. And, the public perception is you can make more money, you got a 4-year education. Yeah, in the big picture statistics, but it doesn't really trickle down correctly once you start, breaking down the microcosms. So, I kind of have mixed feelings about this. On the one front, I get it, the debt load is high, but, you still have to figure out how to manage your own life. And, you're not a kid anymore. You're 18, 19, 20, 20, 22. You're an adult, you're a young adult. And, key word's adult. You're part of being an adult trying to figure out how to make this work. So, not to say, look, you're not the first one today to be in this problem. I've been in this problem a long time too.
Yeah.
And somehow I had to figure this out like everybody.
That's one of the life challenges that you'll face is figuring out your finances. That's right.
And there's another piece that I think people don't want to talk about, which I think a few news outlets have pointed out, but hasn't really caught on yet, is that Biden does this, the president does this. That's taxable income.
Mm-hmm.
Loan forgiveness is taxable income by the state and federal and the county, depending on what part of the country you're in. So let's do a little quick math here, right? Let's say you're making like 50 grand for easy math. Let's say your tax rate is 15%. Let's say that, the state, Massachusetts tax rate is 5%. You're taking, 10 grand reduction, and just for simple math, that's 20% of taxes right off the bat. So you have to pay a lump sum taxes of 20% against $10,000, which is about 2 grand, right? And that means you have to pay those taxes on tax day. Now, if you're money crunched, can you come up with that lump sum in exchange for essentially 8 grand in loan forgiveness?
Okay, had not heard that. Interesting.
Because when you have a loan forgive, it becomes income.
Yes, it's right. It's debt that you no longer owe, so therefore it's on the other side of your ledger, right?
Yeah, and then you got the Pell Grant people, so you make that potentially $20,000.
Yeah.
Using again the same example, let's say it's a 50% Fed rate, let's say it's a 5% state rate, let's say it's 20%. That doubles to 4 grand. You have to drop in bulk. Now, if you're having financial challenges now to make ends meet, you're going to drop 4 grand right away on $20,000. So you're getting a $16,000 benefit. So you got to figure out how that math works in your real life. So you don't have 4 grand in savings or 4 grand you can spare next tax day. That 20 grand benefit may not be appetizing.
Interesting. I had not heard that point. It's a little confusing because the grant goes to the institution, right? Doesn't go to the individual.
Correct. So, when you got a Pell Grant or other certain types of grants, there are actually all kinds of income tax laws that if it's paid directly to the institution, it's not really considered part of the income.
Right.
But these are loans to the individual, not to the institution.
Yeah.
So since you're carrying those loans, it becomes income if it's forgiven. Now, that's why they talk about Congress taking action, because Congress can suspend the income tax on that. And, there'd be pressure at my level of whether or not we should suspend the income tax on loan forgiveness. I suspect that's going to be one of those issues that will be brought up next year if this program is implemented, and, who knows how this program is going to be implemented.
Yeah. Okay. Very interesting. Yeah.
It may, and because we've already like the PPP, I use an example for businesses. Those who took it as a loan is not income. Those businesses that took it as a grant, it becomes income. So, the state did not take any income tax on PPP grants from small businesses.
Yeah, I mean, a little different because COVID was not their choice,
Yeah, and they're fortunate, and those who are fortunate to qualify and was able to get in when there's still money in that program at the federal level. The legislature's feeling was the fact, despite at the time we didn't know we had any money. I know we're money now, but at the time, we weren't exactly clear what was going on. We took a shot at forgoing that money, hoping that that'll be okay for us at our level. That it wouldn't impact our ability to balance a budget, which thankfully not. But we did the same thing with unemployment benefits. We followed the federal government unemployment benefits regarding I think the first 10 or 20 grand or something. I think some amount at the beginning wasn't taxable, which also saved a lot of people in the tax bill during income tax day. And we still had a very good income tax collection, but it's really capital gains and corporate taxes. It's complicated. As you guys can imagine, there's a lot of moving parts here. But, this is going to be the pressure on Congress and the legislature about whether or not to allow people to get these loans tax-free. So, I have a lot, as you can tell, folks, I have a lot of mixed feeling about this. On the one part, I get the debt issue and impact it has on folks. And the other part, no one put a gun to your head to go to college and make this work. And part of this life is figuring it out.
Seeing as you brought it up, Tacky, is the state legislature going to get into a session before the start of the new session to deal with the budget surplus?
No, I don't believe we're going to go back in unless there's a skies falling emergency situation. Speaker of the House is very committed to not to do this, and there's no point for the Senate to come in if the House isn't coming in. The governor could recall us, but we wouldn't have a calendar so we could gavel in and gavel out. So that doesn't work either. So if we're going to do this, we have to go into a clear agenda what we're doing, get in, do our job, and get out, and try to limit other folks from doing things when we're trying to get our agenda done. Namely procedural maneuvers to extend the calendar day, as well as filing amendments and trying to push other bills onto the floor beyond the scope of what we're trying to do that one day.
Okay.
People think it's like a simple thing in and out. No, I mean, when people have an opportunity to try to do more than what you want on your agenda list, unless you create a situation where you force them into just doing the agenda, they're going to take an opportunity to do other things. So during a normal session, this is easy because we can move to a new calendar day. If things get kind of wacky, but it's a one day in and out. That's not going to happen. So I would not put money down that would be back before swearing in day.
Okay, very good. What is that date actually? Do you know?
The first Wednesday after the first Wednesday after the first Tuesday in the month of January.
Okay, all righty.
So I think
there's a primary election coming up.
yeah, everyone please remember to vote. I mean, the early voting is occurring now at City Hall to, I believe, this Friday. Your mail-in ballots are still out to get in, but you better get your mail-in ballots straight to City Hall to do that. At that point, you must do early voting. And of course, primary day is on the 6th. City Hall and the council had a special session just to vote on one thing, which is the location of the special election. I'm sorry, it's the special, the early voting. Okay,
Right.
council
Yep.
voted for early voting locations. The summertime, you can find it on the city website. I know Saturday early voting's already come and gone. But I mean, you can still vote at City Hall. My mom's having a little bit of a health issue this week, so I'm probably going to try to get her to City Hall to vote as opposed to going primary day. And since I'm going to take her to vote anyway, I'm also do the same thing since I'm there, right? I mean,
Sure.
why waste the trip?
Yeah.
But there's no excuse this year on not voting. Between mail-in voting, the ability to vote early in person, as well as voting on the day of. I don't know what to tell folks. I mean, we created so many opportunities to make life so much easier for folks to get to vote.
Yep, absolutely. There was voter registration took place the 27th, I think was the last day for that. So even that's been shortened now for to 10 days before the election.
Absolutely. If you have a birthday, obviously you have a birthday by election day, you can register to vote because your birthday is by election day to turn 18. But even then, you're right. I mean, we have online voter registration now, which we've had for many years. Obviously, people getting driverless the first time has the ability to opt out. It's an opt out over voter registration. And for example, my nephew registered to vote twice by accident because he didn't opt out when he was at RMV getting his license. So the city clerk remedied that so he does not register twice. Right. So this is not uncommon, by the way, of 18-year-olds. I discovered they register to vote at high school and they register to vote by accident again at the RMV. But again, the central voter database as well, the city and town clerks, able to read those out. So he's not a due voter.
That's right. Yeah.
And he mailed in his first ballot before heading off to college.
Oh, very good. That's an exciting time for a young person, I'm sure. I remember years ago when dinosaurs roamed the earth and I did my first vote.
Well, you did it on a tablet. You had to chisel to a rock.
That's right. I gave it to the sturgeon to fly over to City Hall. Hey, were you at August Moon, Techie?
I was at August Moon Festival. I was there for pretty much almost the entire event. Handed a lot of paper fans out. People love the Chan fans and some jar openers and chit chat of constituents. People had some good questions for me. Had some good discussions, and I also listened to other people's concerns of you name it. I'm there. People talk about it. I mean, it's just they see an opportunity, they just want to say whatever. And and there are a lot of real concerns about the price of living, the MBT issue, which I don't want to talk about the Orange Line today, but we can talk about a different day.
We will.
Getting around the city, congestion, how they're going to look at the job market. I mean, some people are looking for job changes because they want to get paid better, big surprise, right? And some people some policy issues that have gone on, including things like there was in the budget. In particular, you're asking about funding important programs like domestic violence, homeless programs, LIHEAP, low income energy assistance programs, things like that. So people talk about that, and people also talk about some sidewalk issues, which again is the same problem, but happy to listen to the concerns about that as well. So it has been a great conversation, and also had an opportunity to take Andrea Campbell, candidate for Attorney General, which I'm supporting, around the festival as well. And she actually went to the Low Water Festival. Very few statewide candidates actually come to Asian festivals in the state. So I was actually very pleased to hear that she made the effort to go visit the Cambodian community, Southeast Asian community in Lowell to talk about their issues and learn about how how things work up there. So I'm happy she came down, spent about 40 minutes of us plus to talk to residents.
Very nice. Yeah, there's been a few. I know Maura Healy was in Quincy not too long ago as well. I think Kim Driscoll. So things are starting to heat up.
Things are heating up. Nikki is thinking about a 25% turnout in Quincy. That'll be actually very high compared to other communities. Norfolk County, in particular, Quincy has always been able to be the highest percentile voter turnout in primaries, which is why Quincy is so desirable by both Democrats and Republicans to campaign here.
Yeah, people vote. That's why.
Yeah, in both political parties.
Yeah.
So not surprising. I saw Dottie and Capanella running on the Republican ticket, and they came by Quincy as well. We said hi, and it was pleasant. I mean, always.
Well, I mean, if you don't remember because you're too young, even I am actually, but Quincy was staunchly Republican for many, many years, going back before the Kennedy era.
Yeah, and many people, much more than I have talked about the battles of taking over the city council, the school committee, moving up to the county before getting to the state level. Like all political movements, it all starts at the ground level, working at the local offices, and you work your way up. But it took decades, as I'm reminded by the older generation of Democrats, and we're talking about 25 plus years of grinding it.
Right.
And people were aware of the old political families, Bilotis, McIntyre, Tobins, and so many others. Democratic families that made the city a Democratic stronghold.
I know you're pressed for time today, but we should let folks know how to get a hold of you, Tacky.
Sure. The office is 617-722-2370, 617-722-2370. This is a number change. Just remind everyone again, I know we've been talking about the number change for months, but people sometimes don't realize the number change to say it. Tacky.chan@emmyhouse.gov, tackey.chan@emmyhouse.gov. I will get you emails. I still get a lot of junk mail, folks. I do have to sift through it. State Representative Tacky Chan website. Facebook, State Representative Tacky Chan Facebook. You can see a public hearing I did last Monday regarding home rotation in Boston and getting a little tour around the restaurant area. They were going to put those licenses in, as well as TackyChan.org, which we're working on revamping. Me and the staff had a long conversation about massive revamp coming. So, but yeah, plenty of ways to get to me this summer, and hope you all enjoy your Labor Day, and please vote on September 6th.